Hi Nat5s, we're still on Life on Earth. We're looking at competition. Okay, so competition. Any resource that is in limited supply can be competed for. So if you have plenty of everything, then nothing is a problem, kind of thing. Anything that plants need and animals need could be a point of competition. So give it some thought. What would you come up with? You can even pause it if you wish to have a little think. Here might be some examples. So you might have gone for plants, you might have said, well, they need carbon dioxide, they need water, they need light. These are your kind of obvious things they require for photosynthesis. They also need like root space. You could argue as well they need canopy space, so space for leaves, which is kind of linked into light. They get nutrients from the soil. Oh, that's definitely not the word nutrient spelled correctly. You also could go animal-wise. So they obviously need food, they need space. They might be territorial, in which case a very distinct type of space. They might need nesting sites or other places where they actually want to live, really. There will be competition for mates. And it goes on and on and on. There's so many different things that could be in a limited supply that they might compete for. So you need to know two specific terms linked to competition. They're very similar, which means you need to actually spell them correctly and use them very carefully. So competition that is between different species is called interspecific competition. Now, the specific is obviously species, so you have to find a way to get that inter in your head. I go with the international flights. I'm quite happy with that in my head, meaning an international flight is going to a different country. So if it's between different places, you're like, okay, interspecific is between different things. Interspecific competition is potentially could push one species out of a particular niche or a particular place in the habitat. But generally there'll be overlap. So bits that one species can cope with and another species can't. So you end up with a balance. And this is one of the kind of commonest examples you're given of these. So what we have here is two types of mussel. So this one has potentially it could live all of this kind of area from the kind of tide line up. Okay. But in reality it only ends up here. The other one, this species, I'm not even attempting to say their names, okay, it could live in this area and actually manages to live pretty much there. So in this case what you would say is that this one here has been the strongest competitor in this section, this area, because it's outcompeted the other one. The other one, however, had an area which it didn't need to compete with the other one for because it had a wider ecological range. So you end up with a kind of balance of them. There is a particular rule for this one, which I quite like, which is the complete competitors cannot coexist. The 4C law. You don't need to know it, but the idea is really important, that if you had something with exactly the same requirements, two different species that needed exactly the same thing, one of them is going to outcompete to the point of killing off the other one. So your next level is what if it's within the actual species. So if you have individuals of the same species, this is intra-specific. So it is so close, intra, you have to get it right. Okay, so intra-specific is actually going to be even more intense than interspecific because they need exactly the same thing, the same resources. So the competition is actually going to be greater within the species than between species because everything they want is exactly what the other thing in the competition wants. So it could be, well, any of the examples that are picking up and many, many more. I just put this one in because I think they're cute. These are Japanese macaques, just to say that there are odd things that you don't necessarily think of as resources that you would need competition for. In their case, because of where they live, in the winter they compete for spaces in hot pools, and it gets quite complicated. They need social mechanisms to actually fight for it, but fighting in terms of grooming particular adults which have areas that are theirs. So not always clear cut and not always who's the biggest wins. It can be who's the most sneaky or the cleverest or just doing whatever they need to get the resource they need. And that's competition.